when Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do," what he's trying to say is that our soul is going through an evolutionary process that we are not aware of. So we don't know why we are the way we are, why we're going through what we're going through, why we feel what we feel towards other people, because if we knew everything, there would be no point in going through this cycle of life. The purpose of this cycle of life, every cycle of life that you go through, each cycle that you go through in a particular life, your soul goes through, it has lessons it must learn. It has strengthening that it has to go through. So, and that requires experiences and information. And so that's part of the evolutionary process, is to go through the experience and learn, grow, and evolve. And so that's why Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do," because ultimately you have souls that are at the beginning stage of the evolutionary process, so they are less evolved. And then you have those that are more towards the end of its evolutionary process, which means it's becoming more advanced. The ones that are less evolved, typically, these are the ones that suffer with things like wanting to be in power, wanting to have control, being really greedy, being really envious, being really hateful, and always attacking. And so the idea is they're going to attack those that are more evolved, typically, is how it works. Now, of course, there's times when they attack people that are not more evolved. They're just angry on the inside, so they're projecting out. But typically, the ones that are less evolved are always attacking those that are in their stage of becoming more advanced. Usually they're intelligent, they're talented, they're vibrant, they're thriving, they're healthy. And, so the idea is that the ones that are less evolved, that are constantly attacking, constantly degrading, constantly belittling, they gossip about people, they create false documents and false images and false videos to tear people down, to create a false narrative, to lie and manipulate, to get people to perceive a certain person a certain way, trying to destroy that individual's life. And so the one that's more advanced, the idea is for them to learn how to cope with that, to learn how to handle that situation, to learn how to not allow it to bother them, to not allow it to negatively impact them. And if these two happen to be in any kind of relationship, ultimately the one that is becoming more advanced, one of the things they have to learn how to do in order to strengthen their soul is walk away from those that are trying to tear them down. Now, this doesn't mean you don't love them, you don't care about them. It just means that you have to be strong enough to evolve as much as you can in a particular life cycle. So anyone that's trying to prevent that, you have to walk away. But it's okay, because our Heavenly Father takes care of each one of us. Of course, we have free will, and that free will, ultimately, we have the choice to either do what is healthy and harmonious, or to do what is unhealthy and destructive. Because every choice we have in life is going to lead to one or the other. And sometimes we make choices doing both. Sometimes we do things that are healthy and harmonious, and sometimes we do things that are destructive. But what we do determines the path we go down. And this includes what kind of karma we're going to pay. Are we going to pay consequences, or we are going to receive blessings? Which way is it going to be? So when someone is doing things to hurt you and you realize, I've got to get out of this in order to break this cycle, in order to become more advanced, to evolve more, when you leave that person, the Father's going to provide them with more people to help them on their journey. And so, because when we encounter people, typically our souls know things that we don't know. So our souls know that we are coming together to learn certain things and to strengthen certain things. So we aren't aware of it. In our mind, there's people that think, oh, I can't stand this person, I hate this person, and they start gossiping about this person, and the one that's being attacked, they may try to help that individual, but eventually they're going to be like, this person can't stand me, and they're gossiping about me, and they're manipulating me, and they're hurting me. I got to get out of this. And that's ultimately what you need to do, is to get away from it. And though you may not understand why they're doing it, your soul does. Your soul knows that this is happening so that it can strengthen and expand and evolve. So this is why, you don't want to hold grudges. You have to do what's best for you. And the Father's going to help that person as long as they are trying. Because again, we have free will and we choose what path we take. So if you are trying to be self-aware and you are trying to hold yourself accountable and learn and grow and evolve, if you're trying to do that, you're making your soul useful for the Father, so the Father's going to provide for you. But that does not mean that, if you're choosing to constantly attack someone, even if they walk away and they start going down a different path, and you just keep going and you keep doing stuff to try to tear that person down, you're constantly going to be receiving consequences. So you're going to get stuck in a cycle of suffering because you're constantly getting hit with bad karma, because you're constantly trying to hurt another person. The idea is modification. The idea is that you will become self-aware, that you will get so sick and tired of suffering that you will eventually wake up to the fact that you can only control yourself, and if you want to do good in life, you're going to have to focus on yourself. And you're going to have to start learning, growing, changing, and evolving. And so the ones that are becoming more advanced, the idea is for them to learn how to take what they learn, heal, learn, grow, change, evolve, let go of the past, move forward to become more advanced, and to learn how to remain calm and be unbothered. So, because there are people that do function primarily like a virus, and I don't say that to be offensive. I say that because it's technically speaking, that's what they function like, because they are always attacking people. Whether it's verbally, emotionally, or physically, they do it a lot. And so these individuals oftentimes will belittle and degrade people, whether they do it behind their back or they're doing it publicly. Either way, that's what they do. And the idea is to learn how to not let it affect you, to be aware that this individual is suffering in life and they are unwell. They are struggling, they're unhappy, they're unwell, they have bad intentions because they are unhappy and unwell. And to just be able to ignore them. I mean, that's part of the evolutionary process, to learn how to keep strengthening yourself and continue to become strong, wise, evolve, become more advanced. No matter who tries to tear you down, learn how to ignore them. And of course, these kinds of people do need help, and the Father's going to provide them with help. The Father's going to provide them with whoever it is needs to learn from that experience along with them. So once you learn what you need to learn and you let go and you move on, the Father's going to provide someone that where they are now in their evolutionary process, once you two detach, the Father's going to provide them with someone that needs to learn lessons along with the lessons they need to learn in order to continue to evolve. And so this is one of the reasons why I'm completely against marriage, because ultimately, and I know people are going to disagree with the things I say, and that's perfectly fine. I've already prepared myself for that. But ultimately, marriage is a construct for and by the power structure, because there's people at the top of the power structure that wants to remain at the top, and they want their children and grandchildren to take over. So they want to keep everyone else down, so they do things to do this, like distract us, keep us sick, mislead us, deceive us, manipulate us. They do things to keep us down, and one of those things is marriage. Because if you're meant to be with somebody for life, the Father's going to make sure that that person is in your life forever. Not only that, but you two are going to evolve together. But oftentimes, as if you pay attention to the world around you, not to people's biases, but pay attention to real life experiences around you, you will notice that oftentimes married people get to a point where they actually can't stand each other, and they argue a lot, and they're keeping each other stressed and sick. And so the idea of the marriage certificate is to make each other's property. And it also allows the power structure to generate money if and when you decide to leave. So what happens is people will hold on as much as they can to not get a divorce. But when our souls have finished their contract with each other, it never gets better. So when two people come together and they're not supposed to be with each other for life, they're only supposed to teach each other, and they're supposed to learn, grow, and evolve through that experience, and they try to stay in that relationship anyway, they will continue to suffer because they're not meant to be with each other for life. So neither one of them are following their highest timeline. They are staying stuck. So I think that as we become more advanced as a civilization, we're going to do away with marriage because it does nothing for the connection. It doesn't make your connection stronger. I mean, there are married people that hire hitmen to kill their spouse just to get out of the marriage because they don't want to lose a lot of stuff. And going through a divorce is hell. So, I think that as we become more advanced, we're going to A, start practicing celibacy more. B, we're going to, have friendships. And, when we find someone that we are deeply in love with, we will form a relationship with them, and we will have a partnership with them. And our connection with each other is going to be what it is with or without the marriage certificate. And honestly, I believe that people actually try harder if you're not married, because if it's easy for someone to walk away, you're going to try harder to keep them around. If you know that if you want to leave me, you're going to have to hire an attorney, and I'm going to take everything I can from you, you're less likely to walk away. But if you're not married and it's easy for someone to say, hey, look, of course you want to try to work through things first. You communicate the best you can and try to work things out so you can stay together. But if the person you're with does not care, they have no respect, they are not considerate, they do not care, they're going to do what they want, they're going to disrespect you, they're going to cheat on you, and they don't care about you and your feelings, and you're like, all right, well then I'm out. They are more likely to try knowing that it's easy for you to walk away. And plus, if you do not get married, now you're with someone by choice, not because you don't want to go through hell to get a divorce and lose a lot of stuff, So I think that as we become more advanced and we start to think about what is logical and how can we restore life on this planet to make it more pleasant for everyone, marriage is going to cease to exist. Because it really isn't necessary. Honestly, it's not. And people should be seen for who they are and what they've achieved in life and what they've overcame and what their experiences are, what's their perception on life, versus, being seen as... I just think it's important to see people for who they are. Because sometimes, something that I've realized is that if there's a woman that has come from the depths of hell, like they came from poverty, they came from abuse, they came from multiple addictions, and they heal themselves and they start to elevate in life, there are certain men that are very wealthy that will want this woman because they see her potential. And in their mind, they're thinking, she can be very helpful for me to get this status I'm trying to reach, become a power couple. But what happens in these situations is that the man gets all the credit and all the glory, and the woman sometimes, especially if she comes from nothing, people are going to perceive her as just a whore that married him for his money, or a prostitute that married him for his money, and they're never going to see her for who she is. And that's very unfortunate that that happens, but I believe that as we become more advanced, things like that are going to not happen anymore.